Welcome, everyone, and I thank you for joining us here on the Father Show. Today, we have another fantastic show, and we've got a Daniel Herta who is coming on the show from Focus on the Family, and we're going to be talking about 7 traits of effective parenting. But before we get to that, if you have not subscribed to the Father Show with Mike Thompson YouTube channel, I ask that you would go to our YouTube channel, click on the subscription button, and while you're there, hit that notification bell so that way every week when we post a show, you'll be notified. Now, if you are a man and you're looking for resources, I would ask that you would go to thefathershowwithmikethompson.com. Click on resources, and there you will find statewide and national resources that can assist you in whatever situation that you may have. And I know our guests today from Focus on the Family, they have some resources too. So you can get whatever help that you may need, because ultimately we want you to be the best version of yourself. And the way we can do that is with knowledge. And today, we're going to get some of that knowledge. So, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, I want to introduce Daniel. And Daniel is a vice president of the Parenting and Youth Department. Danny oversees initiatives that equip parents to discipline and mentor the next generation so that they can strive in Christ. Now, he is bilingual, licensed clinical social worker. And this book that he has, I really love it. And I think you're going to love it and hearing about it. So let's just bring in Daniel and get this thing on the road. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome Daniel. And Daniel, how do you say your last name?
Huerta, Huerta,
Bertha.
yes. It means orchard, Mike. It means,
Yeah.
yeah, and
Well,
I love gardening, so it fits.
my wife is Spanish, and I have yet to be able to really pronounce words like rolling your tongue. I can't do it. You give me tequila, I can do it.
Yes.
But after tequila, I'm lost.
Yeah, that R, that gets a lot of people, when there's a telemarketer calling because they struggle with that last name.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Daniel, I thank you so much for being a part of the show. And like I mentioned earlier, you have a book out, and I really want to dive right into this because it really covers a lot of the questions and will tap into a lot of the questions that I have anyway in regards to being an effective parent. And you've written a book called 7 Traits of Effective Parenting. What are those 7 traits?
Yes. So, and by the way, these 7 traits are from extensive research. It's not like I just came up with them one day as I was walking around the street and, and decided, oh, these would be 7 great traits. I've been a therapist for over 20 years and also did my dissertation on this topic. There's 7 traits of authoritative parenting, and it's the balance of warmth and sensitivity, and then balanced with guidance and boundaries that we need to bring as dads to our home. And so the traits are also put in order, in a certain order, intentionally. And the first one's adaptability, then
Hmm.
it's respect, then it's intentionality, then steadfast love. It's not just love, it's steadfast love. And then boundaries and limits, grace and forgiveness, and then gratitude. And gratitude creates an adaptive mind. And so that, as you can see, these are put in a certain order with intention as you are living out these 7 traits and as you grow as a dad.
Yeah. Now, you mentioned effective love, right? Correct? Is that what?
So steadfast
So,
love,
steadfast love.
steadfast.
What do you mean by that?
Yeah, steadfast love means that when my child is at his or her worst, when they're at their worst, that's when they need my love the most. That's when I get to overlook imperfections and go towards what is it that my child is needing in the moment. It steadfast love means that when I am in that role as dad, And that means all the time, right? When you have
Right.
kids, it means I'm taking the time to listen. And if my child does something to disobey me or is angry or is frustrating me, I'm leaning even more so into that, that there's nothing they can do to withdraw my love from them. I would still, at any moment, give up my life for them, regardless of what they choose to do, even if it's complete disobedience in our home. It
Hmm.
means I'm still leaning in. They can't do anything to withdraw my love.
And how do you make a child really feel that no matter what they do, you're gonna still love them?
Well, I still remember. I'll tell you a story. I remember when my daughter was young, and she spilled milk, and she knew I was frustrated. She looked right into my eyes and could see that. Oh, Dad's frustrated. You could see the shame, and I was looking at her, and I could see that she really felt bad. It was an
Hmm.
accident, and I needed to catch up my emotions into that because she spilled on some important papers. It was a very inconvenient time, and then she looked at me and she said, "That wasn't supposed to happen." And it caused me to think about, well, how many moments do I have of that wasn't supposed to happen, and when have I received grace? And right now, this is my opportunity to love and attach to my child in a moment of mistake and imperfection instead of absolute correction. And she already knows she did something wrong. How do I shape that moment to be a different moment, a moment of attachment and connectedness with her? And then guidance, where I go, yeah, okay, maybe next time we need to put the milk here, and maybe it's some awareness on my part to
Hmm.
correct that. It means me stepping in, listening, and seeing my child as important, and really regulating my own emotions in order to show that steadfast love, the love that in the moment is needed by your child. Kids are carrying insecurities and all their imperfections wherever they go, and when those things spill out, there's a lot of self doubt, and you as dads have a tremendous impact on helping them rebuild after those moments.
Hmm. Because yeah, kids are going to have their and make their mistakes. There's no if and but about it. Because as we know, there's no such thing as a perfect parent, and no such thing as a perfect child. But there's no such thing as a perfect person. And so we have to be able to learn to love our kids regardless of what they do. But let me ask you, when you do love your child and your child has done something wrong, or you have to do something that is a tough decision to make, like tough love, do you agree with having tough love with your child, or is it always, you know, really accepting what they do and still love them regardless?
Oh no, you gotta have some tough love. I love there's a proverb in Proverbs, I think it's 15:31, and those are very wise proverbs. It says that he who accepts correction accepts life, right? So it's
Mm-hmm.
life-giving correction, constructive correction. And as dads, our tone makes a huge difference on how we correct and guide our kids.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes it can be firm, and it needs to be firm, yet with love and warmth. There's one. There's some. I remember there was a dad one time that corrected his son in front of everyone, slapped him upside the head, and said, "You're stupid." Now there can be in that moment you could see that son, that teenage son, just completely just collapse inside emotionally.
Mm-hmm.
Could it have been done differently by a dad? The correction, hey son, it's important that you remember your things, and that it was an instance where he had forgotten his things, and the attendant said, hey, you forgot these things, and he said, son, you're so stupid, and popped him upside the head in front of a bunch of people. That's guidance that's damaging. That's the
Mm-hmm.
insecurity of the dad coming out. Whereas if you have a secure loving dad, they will see that as a teachable opportunity rather than a moment of shaming their child. And so it's important to know and recognize I am an important teacher and influencer in my child's life. I love them and I correct them. And in the correction, when a child forgets something, you say, "Hey, son, I wonder what you need to put in place to remember your things." And there are natural consequences sometimes when kids forget their things, and maybe that natural consequence sometimes is just as hard for the parent. But you need to let that happen for it to be
Hmm.
a teachable, formational moment for your child, even if it's painful or there's failure or some type of negative thing that happens in that moment. There needs to be the tough love so that there's a moment of growth,
Yeah.
not a moment of shaming.
Now, Daniel, if a father has done that, slapped the kid aside the head, called him stupid, and realized that he unfortunately lost his temper at that point in time, how can he recover and still show his kid love?
Yes, recognizing when your imperfection spills out, and that looks like you say to your son, "Hey, son, I am really sorry for the way I handled that moment. I could have handled it very differently." And that maybe it's pulling him aside, maybe taking him out for a walk, having that private one-on-one connection. You look into his eyes or her eyes, and you just say, I really didn't handle my emotional world well."
Mm-hmm.
And I really believe that I damaged our relationship. I'd love to repair, much like bridges. I love to talk about grace and forgiveness when we're driving over bridges. I'll talk to my 18-year-old and 16-year-old. Hey, I wonder what bridges we all need this week.
Mm-hmm.
We sometimes accidentally hurt people. Sometimes we do things wrong. I wonder if there's a place where we need to either forgive or be forgiven. Let's make sure we bridge up this week, because those if you leave something disconnected in that relationship, resentment begins to grow.
And those are teachable moments as well, would you say?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, I would
Yeah.
agree, Mike. Those are teachable moments for your child to know how to handle moments when we don't do things well.
Mm-hmm. Now, one of the 7 traits that I really think is important too is adaptability. Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah, adaptability. I love the idea of flexibility of our minds, and there are multiple things that we're adapting to as parents. It begins from the beginning when you're adjusting to your spouse who has a different personality, a different way of doing things, and initially that was very attractive. And then it can become unattractive pretty quickly when you have the opposites and you're not agreeing on things. So you're adapting to another person that you're married to. And then once you have a child, you're adapting to maybe not sleeping as much. You're having to adapt to their own unique personality that may be different than yours, diapers, having to carry a diaper bag with you wherever you go. All those things, you're adjusting and adapting to it. And the other thing is each day brings with it new things that were unexpected. The thing that I mentioned that wasn't supposed to happen moments that you're adapting to. And just realize each of your children will have a different way of interpreting things, different interests, different desires, different worries, different thoughts, and you're adapting to that. You can't treat one exactly like the other. And I know sometimes kids will say, "Man, that's unfair. They got to do that." Well, maybe they have a more responsible type of personality, whereas the more impulsive personality may need to have more boundaries and limits placed on them just because they need more of that order and structure put in place in order for them to handle life well. So the adapting is flexibility of mind towards what it is that is happening in that child's life as they're
Mm-hmm.
trying to do things. So yeah, it's the first one intentionally, because if you're adapting well and you're showing that interest, that love, that listening to the child, their temperament, their personality, you're managing your stress well, you're adapting to what the day's bringing rather than being taken for a ride. Then you bring respect, that next trait, to the table,
Mm-hmm.
which lends itself to then you being able to be intentional, and then you can be very loving in that. So adaptability is key to parents as they respond to their kids.
Yeah, I wouldn't agree with you more. I mean, you we have, my wife and I, between us, we have 6 kids, and to be able to adapt to the personalities of each one of those kids is something that is not easy to do. But like you mentioned, in every situation, you have to learn to adapt. So I agree, and I think you're right. That's like a number one. You have to be able to adapt to different situations, to different actions, and to show them respect while you're doing that. So let's elaborate a little bit about respect, because a lot of times we, as parents, especially minority parents, we think, wait a minute, you got to respect me. I don't need to respect you. I'm the parent. You're not the parent. You're the child. So what do you mean by respect?
Yeah, that means how am I handling me? Respect, when you look at it, is looking back. The first part of the word respect is re. So you're looking back.
Mm-hmm.
Spect is the word for spectacles. So I'm looking back into me and into you, right? So
Mm-hmm.
respect is both ways. And that means, how am I handling my eyes, my mouth? Are my words life giving or life taking? When I enter a room, are my eyes life giving or are they consuming? When I enter with my hands, are they serving or are they taking? When I go with my feet wherever I'm going, is it because it's the right decision for my family and in the context of loving my family, or
Mm-hmm.
is it just about me? And so it's about me as a person. How am I managing me in order to guide my child well and create connectedness rather than disconnection?
Mm. Okay.
That's what respect is about. Yeah. And
Okay.
and one of the things I love, the idea, the word invitation is something I've been thinking about a lot. I am invitations generally bring a sense of respect to the moment.
Mm-hmm.
Our days are filled with invitations from our kids. These bids for connection, they're invitations. And that could be a smile, it could be, "Hey dad, can you come do this? Hey dad, uh, they're calling you on the phone, or dad, can we go for a walk? Can we go to the store?" These are invitations. And now you have to figure out, what am I going to say yes to? What am I going to say no to? What is this invitation about? And if it's inconvenient, or it's important, it causes me to really think through that invitation carefully, because out of that invitation comes momentum.
Mm.
Momentum is it going to create a certain direction in my relationship with my child? If I'm constantly
Mm-hmm.
saying no, I don't have time to these
Mm-hmm.
invitations, especially when
Mm-hmm.
they're young and they're constantly coming, eventually the invitations will stop
Mm-hmm.
that momentum. And in the teenage years, the invitations need to come now from the parents, because there are a lot of competing invitations once they reach the teen years. And a lot of parents miss out on that. They go, "Oh, they're just going with their friends. They're going," and there are very rarely any invitations from us as parents, similar to what came to us from when they were little kids, in
Mm.
wanting that connection. I respect the fact that you're growing older, and I respect that you have a schedule, and I'd love to invite you out for dinner or to connect, because there still needs to be a momentum of influence from a dad to that teenage son or daughter in very unique ways. Daughters need their dads,
Mm-hmm.
sons need their dads. You have a tremendous amount of influence. All the research has pointed to the fact that a dad that is adaptive to each personality, that shows intentionality in that relationship with their child, that shows respect in that child's life, their grades are higher, sexual promiscuity is lower, high risk behaviors are lower, substance use is lower. You have a tremendous momentum impact in your child's life. You truly bring life into who they are and how their life plays out
Mm-hmm.
by how you handle those invitations, those moments of in between with you and your child, and how you show up. And if you show up respectfully, your child will want to talk to you, because you're starting off by listening to them.
So if you put them off more than you accept the invite, then that's when you see your child starts inviting you less and less and less, and to the point that they really don't even invite you to anything.
Right. I mean, think about a smile is an invitation, right? A person that smiles at you, you have the invitation to smile back. We missed out on those during the pandemic for a while, those
Mm-hmm.
invitations to smile. We missed them. We missed those invitations. And your child just looking into your eyes, smiling at you, is simply an invitation. And just think about that. If you didn't smile back over and over and over and over again, pretty soon they'll say, yeah, I don't want to smile. That's just with any other thing, the invitations come and eventually they just kind of quiet down if there isn't that connectedness because kids move on. And
Yeah.
so as dads, make sure you have moments where you say, I see the invitation. Yes, I'm coming. And that playfulness that you bring into that relationship, that curiosity into your child's life is very powerful in the connectedness, but also the influence you can have as you guide and direct your children
Mm-hmm.
towards where they need to go.
Now, do you think that, we kind of talked about it at the beginning of the show, well, before we came on the air, about the trauma and the school shootings and all these things that are going on that kids are seeing and hearing about and being affected by. Do you think some of the people that perpetuate these incidents, do you think that's because that they didn't have intentionality from their parents, somebody smiling back, somebody talking back, that that love that they were looking for, wanting, and didn't receive?
I think there's so many yeah, there are a lot of complicating factors to
Yeah.
that. There are really there has to be some level of mental illness for somebody to want to take someone else's life or
Mm-hmm.
trauma. And so the influence of a father and a mother in a child's life is critical. When you're
Mm-hmm.
missing one or the other or both, it does affect a person's development. I would love to have known the story, the history of this person that chose in that day to do what they did. What happened? That's a very
Yeah.
important question for us to ask. And it doesn't mean that if we miss out as a dad in our child's life that there's going to be just really destructive behaviors like these in our kids.
Mm-hmm.
Behaviors are a symptom of something so much deeper that I wonder this person's callousness towards these kids, what happened there. And as parents, as we're adapting to this, it means that we help our kids process and interpret these events from a lens that guides that conversation. It says, hey, what are you thinking about what's going on? And we ask the questions. So sometimes for some parents, this is panic mode button. You know, this is panic mode now.
Mm-hmm.
This is going to happen again. Where's it going to happen? What about my kids? And those are normal initial responses. But then we adapt to the fact that we have some kids to guide and help them learn what plan do we have in place in our house, what is safe for us, and helping bring peacefulness into our home, reassuring our kids of the plans we've got in case this happens, and then also reassuring our children of the overall safety that we truly do enjoy here in the United States. There are
Mm-hmm.
many pockets that are unsafe, and we have to come up with ways on how you're going to be aware of your surroundings in that situation. But as parents, how do we adapt to that, not panic, and create contagious emotions in our kids where they become frozen with fear? We got to make sure we don't do that.
And I think parents need to realize and think about it, and I'm gonna kind of ask you this question while I'm doing it. But when a baby, when a child or a baby bumps their head and or stumps their toe, they look up at the parent to see what kind of reaction they're gonna get.
Yeah.
And for us as parents, it's really crucial in how we respond and how we react to these kind of situations, these traumas and things like that, because kids are looking at you and saying, okay, how should I react? And if mom or dad is reacting this way, if they're fearful and very scared, then
Mm.
I'm going to feel it. And another
Yeah.
question two, I think with kids, they can feel, even though you might not say nothing and you're trying to hide it, but they can feel the tension that is inside of you. What do you think?
That is very, very correct. Even infants, babies, their empathy networks are going from the time they're born, which is fascinating. I've had dads come into my private practice, my counseling practice,
Mm-hmm.
and I've asked the question, "Hey, so how much of the conflict, the fighting, did your kids experience and witness?" And they'll say, "Oh, yeah, my son was just an infant at the time." And so my next question is, was he crying? Did he cry a lot when you guys were fighting? Yeah, I guess he was crying. What happens is uh, children from the beginning, from the time they're born, they feed off of the emotions in their mom or dad's faces and just the overall environment. Their empathy neurons, their empathy um, pathways are firing right off the start, and they're
Mm-hmm.
learning about their environment through their emotional systems in their brain. And so, as a dad, when you're coming in and you're talking about something, let's say with your friends or with your wife or just others, they will be sensing what it is that you're feeling, even though you may not be showing it on the outside. Their neurons are picking that up, and the emotions inside are pretty contagious. And if you bring a ton of anger to what has happened,
Mm-hmm.
or sadness, I was like, talk through the emotions, because it is normal to have emotions in response to things. And letting kids know, hey, it's normal to feel sad, to feel nervous, to feel angry with what has happened. And so now what do we do with those emotions?
Yeah.
That's the part that we miss out on as parents sometimes, giving
Hmm.
them the clear steps of what you do when those big emotions show up.
Yeah. Now, what are your traits? As out of the seven traits is gratitude. And so, how can a parent show more gratitude towards their kids?
Yeah, and again, that gratitude creates an adaptive mind. So it's so important to create the habit, the culture of gratitude in your home. And the way you show that is you could go to what we have in our house. We have a poster board by our garage, and on the way out, if we think of it, we'll either read one of the things we're thankful for, or we will. I'll just take a look at what we've written on there. Our goal is to have more than 1,000 different things that we're thankful for that we're putting on this poster board, and we're writing it in creative ways. My daughter's a very creative girl, so she came up with some ideas of different colors and markers, and she has one over her bed that we talk about things that she is thankful for. And so that's one example where we're creating a regular culture of that. Sometimes when we take walks, I'll lead the conversation. Guys, what are you thankful for now? Look at this flower. Sometimes we'll stop and smell maybe a lilac right now. Recently, I said, man, this perfume, that's amazing how this was created. God created this in an amazing way, created flowers to give off perfume. Do we ever stop and even think of that? What is it that we have? Because we tend to very much focus on things we've lost. But
Mm-hmm.
what is it that we've got? We've got food, we've got shelter, and in this fantastically, we've got these things, we've got one another. Sometimes I'll come home as a dad and I'll say, guys, I am so thankful for you. Do you guys know I love you? Do you really know that? And I'll look right into their eyes and I'll say, Dad, I know, no, but do you really know that I love you and I would die for you? And they go, Dad, I do. And sometimes I'll say, hey, why don't we make dinner together? Let's
Mm-hmm.
surround around, come around mom, and let's do this together because I'm so thankful we can. And we've got food to enjoy. Let's prepare it and enjoy it together. And sometimes we've talked about how we can be thankful for chores as opportunities to learn how to serve when we don't necessarily feel like it.
Mm-hmm.
How can we be grateful for that? And so our interpretations of moments as adults help our kids learn how to interpret life in a way that's resilient. And that is through a lens of gratitude, being able to shape things in a way that's much healthier to interpret. And so I've noticed some families that hit tragic moments, trauma. They try to bring that gratitude, grateful mind into the mix to create a resiliency. They'll say, okay, we lost this, and we've got this right now to work with. We've got each other. We can still do these things together. All right, let's do that. And it helps them bounce back from trauma rather than being frozen in that collapse of whatever has happened. So, gratitude is key. God has created this in our brains. It's amazing. We're still learning more and more and more about the power of a grateful heart moment by moment. And if you start the day by, man, I'm grateful for a brand new day I get to unwrap. I'm grateful for the people I'm surrounded by and that I get to love. And I'm thankful for the job I've got, that I get to love people through my work. It changes your whole outlook, and it
Mm-hmm.
changes your health, your physical health from the inside out. So, yeah, gratitude's super important. As parents, we can show that day to day. So I'll walk up to my wife and I'll say, honey, I am so thankful for you. I know you do a lot of invisible things in our home. Know that I appreciate them very much. And model that with your kids, in front of your kids.
Mm-hmm. And we did a show yesterday about intimacy, and
Mhm.
when you say that you walk up to your wife and just say, I'm so grateful for you, and that's a part of an intimacy that a man needs to show his wife. And like you just mentioned, something that you're also teaching your kids, because your daughter, one, is going to look at it and say, okay, this is what I want a man to say to me. If he's not saying this, he's not good enough to be with me. And the son is looking at it like, okay, this is how you treat a woman. This is how
Mm.
you need to be. And I know there's more to go with it, but you are being an excellent example of for your son and how he can be with his wife.
Mm. Yeah, Mike, one of the things that I emphasize in my home with my son and my daughter, we've had these conversations just as recent as 2 days ago, is uh, I want them to be contributors rather than consumers.
Mm-hmm.
Contributors in God's kingdom, contributors in our home, contributors in their relationships. So when my son said, "Hey, Dad, can I start dating?" We talked about it being around 16, depending on where he is mature wise and also trustworthy, if he is
Mm-hmm.
trustworthy, because
Mm-hmm.
another dad is going to entrust me with the fact that I'm bringing my son and allowing my son to date his daughter. And so I said, you're going to need to tell me what it means to be a contributor in this young woman's life to her future, one that you both want to remember. And so, how can you be a contributor rather than a consumer of another person? So, we had very important conversations on what that looks like to be that contributor. And that meant, how can I be humble? How can I be kind? How can I be interested in the other person, that I don't have a right to them, but I get to serve and care about them. And they may be someone else's spouse. And so, how am I contributing to the growth of her towards that new spouse? And so, we
Mm-hmm.
talked about what boundaries would make sense within that context. And then we had a time of contract and those types of things, which I said, I'm sorry you have a counselor as a dad, but I really, as I'm thinking about my daughter, and what she, um, what how I want her to be treated. I've asked her, man, I want you to really pay attention to what it means to be a contributor, so that you attract a contributor into your
Mm-hmm.
life. And so when you're dressing a certain way, are you attracting a contributor or a consumer of you?
Mm.
Contributor to you or a consumer? And that, it's so important for girls to also get that. Who do I want to attract? And then how am I a contributor in that young man's life as well? And that, those relational things are intentional conversations that we take on, and that's one of the traits, Mike. Intentionality.
Mm-hmm.
How do I bring intentionality into those conversations with my son and daughter? Do I take time to have intentional conversations in the car, in free time, or do I go to the phone? Because there's so many great opportunities to have intentional, teachable conversations and fun conversations with our kids. And sometimes we're either too tired or it's inconvenient, and we
Yeah.
miss out on moments that we can have with our kids of guiding them towards being contributors in other
Mm.
people's lives.
Yeah. That's important. Now we got two more, and I really want to get into these. I want to get to them, but you have grace and forgiveness. Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah, we need it all the time. Grace and forgiveness is about you being able to model with house, right? That forgiveness, that you're giving them a gift. It says forgive, and so forgiveness means I'm giving a gift to somebody else. I'm giving up the right that I need something back from someone else, that they owe me something. It means sometimes as a mom or dad saying, I'm sorry, either to our spouse or to our kids, and admitting, owning our faults, and knowing that we need to give up defensiveness in order for love to be present in a home.
Mm.
Life giving feedback is so important for our relationships in our home. And sometimes that's where that grace comes in. If we can give feedback to one another in very open, kind, respectful ways. And I'll sometimes ask my kids, hey, what's going well for us as a family? What's not going well for us as a family? What could be some things that I could do differently that would help our home be in a better place?
Mm-hmm.
And being open to that feedback. And at Focus on the Family, we've created what's called a parenting check-in. And we also have a dad's report card that you
Mm-hmm.
can actually send to your kids and have them give you a report card, give you some
Ooh, that's
very
dangerous.
honest and open feedback. and and in that, there may need to be some grace and forgiveness both ways. Those are the bridges between us that we put into play.
Hmm. That's good. That's good. Now, your last one, I think is important because boundaries. And what do you mean by boundaries?
Well, we need to have rules in our house. There's this movement towards permissiveness that if I just let my kids do whatever they want and just love them and just be warm all the time, that they'll like me, they'll become my friend, and
Mm-hmm.
things will go well. It's actually disastrous to do it that way. You create warmth in order to create guidance. You don't do one without the other. If it's all
Mm-hmm.
rules without any warmth, yeah, really, it's shown that you create anger, increase of depression, other mental health issues and relational issues. If it's all warmth, there are also a lot of difficulties behaviorally that you see in kids. If it's all rules, you see emotional difficulties. But when you balance both, that can create a really uh, important developmental situation between you and your child, where you're influencing them in the right direction. So putting a very clear and consistent rules in the house around
Mm-hmm.
technology and entertainment, around the way you dress, where you're going to be, curfews, homework, responsibilities, things that are, if you don't have things done in the house before you, and you're wanting to go out with friends, you can't. You need to get
Mm-hmm.
these things done first, and then you can have that fun time because you took care of your responsibilities. It's good to follow through on the consequences. Otherwise, your kids won't learn that they need to be within those parameters, those rules, that guidance. And again, you're not here to make your kids happy. You're not here to just be all warmth. You're here to guide your kids, and along the way, you will have happy moments, and you will have moments where your children are not happy with you, and that's okay. You're putting a boundary. That's so important for them to learn, because then in society they can respect boundaries that are put on them as
Yeah.
well.
And I always tell parents a very simple thing is mean what you say what you mean. Because once you say it, you got to follow through with it. So if you say you can't do this thing that you want to do because you haven't done this over here that I've asked you to do, then that's it. And some kids will let's beg and cry and nag you to death until you just give up and say, okay, go ahead. I don't care. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Do what you want to do.
Oh, you're so right, Mike. Yeah. And that's so damaging. That is so damaging for a child. They will take advantage of that. They will press you now from that point forward until you give up. So, very, very good advice, Mike. You gotta
Yeah.
you gotta mean what you say. And one other thing is not allowing for your children to divide you up as husband, wife, in the
Yeah.
home. I usually say, hey, what did your mom say first? I want to know what she said, and then I can respond to your request. And then
Mm-hmm.
I'll ask them, is this a demand or is it a request? Because
Hmm.
if it's a demand, we need to talk through that. If it's a request, you're okay with a no then.
Mm-hmm.
And so let's let's figure out where it's coming from, demand or request. If you already talked to mom, what did she say? And I'll check in with her, and I want to make sure you're trustworthy. And then, do you know the reason why we have this rule and this boundary? I want
Mm-hmm.
you to understand why it's even there, so that you own it. It's not that you're not doing it to make me happy, but you're understanding its purpose, its design. Why do we even have this here? For your benefit, for your growth, because I love you and I want to put this in place for your own good and your own benefit. And I need you to trust that in me. And if you don't
Mm-hmm.
trust that, let's have that conversation. I need you to understand why that boundary and that limit is there. Boundaries and limits are so healthy and they're very
Yeah.
life giving to the home. So keep that in mind.
And I think kids really want those boundaries. Do you think?
Oh, Mike, yes. Yes, they want the structure, they want the boundaries. It calms anxiety for kids.
Yeah.
So it's good.
Now, Daniel, what would you say to dads would be the number one thing that they should know about being a parent?
You're going to be imperfect, but man, what influence you have. You know how you're going to show up and show up the best you can to connect and guide your kids. They need you all in. They don't need you to be perfect, because then they get to practice how to love you back. It's not about you being perfect, but about really having a vision and intention for them as they grow older, and having those moments, taking the time to have that relationship. Mike, I was thinking through an impactful conversation I had with a coach once. I played basketball in high school, got an invitation to go on a trip to Guatemala with the basketball team. And our coach, he was talking to us as young men. He said, guys, you guys are going to be married soon. And I want to give you one piece of advice that changed my life. And so we were all listening in, leaning in. We're going, yes. And he said, changed my marriage. I was about to lose my marriage. We were about to get divorced after 2 years of being married. And a guy went to him and said, how about from here forward, you think about one thing you can do to make the day a better day for your spouse? That's how you wake up. You wake up thinking, what's one thing I can do to serve my spouse well, to make her day a better day?
Hmm.
See how that transforms things. So he began to do that. Just one thing he would think about, and it transformed his marriage. And so I took that as a gift for me to take that into my marriage. And I try to do that imperfectly as I do. I try to wake up in the morning. I go, okay, what's one thing I could do for my wife, for my son, for my daughter to make their day better? And it
Hmm.
takes me being intentional about knowing who they are, what means a lot to them. It could be a text, it could be remembering one thing, it could be doing one of their chores real quick, or it could be giving a ride to my wife over to the grocery store and she wants me to go with her. Whatever that is, do that each day, and you're going to begin to transform not only your family but yourself, because you'll create a humble, loving, kind person that serves their home. And now you've got a family, and it starts with you. You can create that leadership simply with that one thing, and bringing those 7 traits with you as you go.
Man, I like that. I like it. And I do it with my wife, and I definitely, like you say, imperfectly. I don't do it every day, but I do it on occasion, just like a little note, a little text, uh, just doing something that will help her to make her life a little easier. So I love what you just said, and I hope a lot of men pick that up and really take that to heart, because it can make your marriage so much better. And with your wife and your kids, I never thought about it doing it with my kids. I'll be all honest. Didn't think about that. and never tried it either. But I think that's
Today's the
great.
day, Mike, right? It starts today,
Well,
right here.
I put it this way with because my kids are grown. My youngest one is 24, and I will send them texts every now and then just to say hello, because we don't live in the same state. So I send them a hello text or a good morning text just to let them know that I love them, that I'm thinking about them, and things of that nature. Do I need to be better at it? Yes, absolutely. And I will. From this day forward, I'm going to be a whole lot better at it. I'm not going to be perfect, but I'm going to be getting better. And one of the things that I say on this show is every day we should be trying to be the best version of ourselves. And if I can throw that into the mix and make myself a little bit better for my kids, hey, fantastic. Because I want them to know that I love them and I'm here for them, and I would do anything for them to a limit.
So true. So true. Yeah.
Well,
It's about being
Dan,
contributors, Mike, right, in their lives in
yeah,
memorable ways and also consistent ways. I
yeah,
think as dads, sometimes we're inconsistent and that gets lost in there. And sometimes we protect the wrong things.
mm-hmm,
And so make sure as dads, as husbands, we protect the right things. And that means giving up our lives for our family. We're serving them, we're contributors to the health of our family.
mm-hmm,
And we forget the fact that we have a tremendous amount of influence on our kids' lives, regardless of their age,
right,
in positive and negative ways. And so remember that today. You're an essential component not only to your family, but to the society as well.
yeah. Well, that's fantastic. But Daniel, unfortunately, that's our time for today. And I told you before the show, I knew this was could go on, because I could keep going, because I love the topic and I love how you deliver it, and you give me some great examples and some great knowledge that a lot of fathers really need to horn in on. So I'm really hoping they do. But in the meantime, how can the audience get in touch with you and get to get the book, and also get to know more about Focus on the Family?
Excellent. Mike, I don't want to leave without leaving this one potential win for dads. I love this one. If you have a dry erase marker or a chalk marker, take the time to write some truths to your child. Our kids get tons of lies through the mirror. There's a crisis of loneliness and self-doubt, difficulty with self-confidence right now with the youth. And you dads, you guys can change the momentum there, one child at a time. So look at where they're going to see themselves in the mirror, do a circle, and write some things that you admire and love about them, and have them remember those words from you as a dad, and maybe stand next to the mirror and reinforce it with them. So just with a
Mm.
chalk marker or a dry erase marker. But you can find more on the book at focusonparenting.com. Focusonparenting.com. You can also, and that you can look at our website there, and you can actually take an assessment that helps you know how you're doing in the 7 traits. It's a free assessment. And then you'll sign up on our email list, and we'll send you content that is helpful for you as a dad to take on those 7 traits. If you want to also go directly to the assessment, you can go to focusonthefamily.com / the number 7 and then traits. That'll take you straight to the assessment. You can purchase the book through that. Amazon's another place you can purchase it, or any other places where you buy books. And we have plenty of content on our website for you as dads. And we actually have a big dad push coming up here around Father's Day and beyond. And of course, here with the Father Show, you guys are in great hands here with Mike Thompson. So thank you so much, Mike, for having me on the show. Love this topic of encouraging dads and then challenging dads to step in and be the best they can be in the various roles that they're playing out today.
Well, Danny, thank you very much, and I love what you're doing, and I went over Focus of the Family website, and it's very impressive and very it gives you a lot of information. So I really will press on our audience to go to Focus of the Dad, check it out. Because you're gonna get little tidbits here, but they've got a lot of information there, and Danny has great articles on the website and so forth. So I'm really appreciative of you being on the show, spending your time with us, and I hope I can really get you back on the show and we can talk about some more things, because I knew we were going to go way over time, but that's okay. I don't mind. As long as you don't mind, I don't mind.
Sounds good. Thanks, Mike. Are you a singer, by the way? You got that voice, man. You could just sing away. Do you sing?
Yeah, I used to be. I don't sing that much anymore, but I have done some singing and grew up singing in the choir. So that's
maybe your audience would love for you to sing in some of the shows. Mike, like at the end or the beginning, man. Yeah.
No.
Get some feedback on that, man. All right. So
yeah,
thank you, Mike. Would love to be with you again.
All right. God bless you, man, and thank you. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that is our show for today. And really, I want to thank Daniel for coming on the show and being a part and giving that information about being effective parent. There's 7 traits of effective parenting, and we have got to learn those. And even if you got 5 of them, learn the other 2. If you got 1, learn the other 6, whatever it takes. But ultimately, we want you to be the best version of yourself, be the best father you can be the best man you can be. Because even if you're not a father, it doesn't mean that some kid is watching you and learning from you. So we as men have got to do a better job with our kids and with our neighbor kids and our nieces and our nephews. All of them. We've got to be a better example in everything that we do. I know it's a burden. I know it's hard, but that's the role that we have. So enjoy it. Do the best that you can with it. Now, if you haven't subscribed to the show, please go to the Father Show with Mike Thompson YouTube channel and click on that subscription button. And while you're there, hit that notification bell, so that way every week when we have a show, you'll be notified and you will know. And please don't forget to share this. If you watch this and they have enjoyed it, please share it with somebody else. Let another person know, male or female, to know that this is here, the Father Show is here, and we are here so that we can learn and educate and motivate ourselves to be the best version of ourselves. And if you are looking for resources, you can go to the Focus on the Family. And also you can go to the Father Show with MikeThompson.com and click on resources. And there we have resources. And I'm going to get Focus on the Family on our website so you can have a link to them. And if you need them, you got it, focusonthefamily.org. All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being a part of the show this week. And I wish you the best. And until I see you next week, God bless you and have a good week.